Hey guys, and welcome to the next tutorial. So in this section we're going to be focusing on intro techniques, so 3D, non-3D, ray trace 3D, and a whole bunch of cool things like lighting and special camera effects, motion graphics. So in this first lesson we're going to be creating this cool sort of a rating system that you would see for like a iPhone or a laptop or any sort of technology where they do like a rating system. So the graphics comes in from the side, and then you can type like what you're rating it on, and then you can put the percentage, and it will make it all animate. And I'll show you the basics of it, and then you can add to it and make it look really nice. So let's get started. Alright guys, go ahead and create a new composition. Mine's going to be 1080p, duration 20 seconds. Alright, and then go ahead and drag in the background and the laptop. Okay, you can of course use your own images. I'm just going to be using this laptop image and this nice blue gradient background. So go ahead and create a new text layer after that, and just put a 0 in your text. And then you can scale this up pretty big, and then we're going to align it perfectly center. So just go to window align, and then go to horizontal and vertical center alignment. Okay, now we're going to create our circle. So come to your ellipse tool here, your shape tool. You're going to click on the ellipse tool, and before you draw it, make sure you click on the 4 options and make the fold to none, because we just want a stroke, and put the stroke to a 4 for a solid color. Okay, now you can either just create your circle, or hold down Control and Shift, create your circle, and then move it into place, or you can click into the center of your text and then hold down Control, Alt and Shift, and it will create it perfectly from the center. Okay, so once you've done that, you'll see this add option here. Okay, we're going to click on that, and we're going to add a trim paths. And you're going to drop down your trim paths, and at the end here, where it says 100%, you're going to just put that to 0. Right, so that's the animation that we're going to be getting. So I think actually put our stroke width up to about 30. Okay, and then just put the end back to 0. Okay, so now we want that and our digit to animate with each other depending on the digit. So I'm going to create a new null object. Okay, and then come down to effect, and we're going to add an expression control, and we're going to add a slider control. Okay, so come down to your text and drop down the text, and where it says here source text, okay, we're going to source the slider and the text. So hold down Alt and click on the stopwatch. Okay, and you'll see it's brought up an extra option now, which is going to allow you to pick whip to the null object. So click on your null object and click on this pick whip tool and drag it over to the slider. Okay, so now to avoid getting hundreds of decimals as it's increasing, we just want whole numbers. So at the beginning of this code here, you're going to type in math, so capital M A, small a, TH, okay, dot round, small r. Alright, and then you're going to open bracket and then close bracket at the very end. So it will be math, capital M, dot, round, open bracket, and then it should be 2 brackets at the end. Right, so you can then just press enter, and if no errors came on your screen, then you've done the correct thing. So now we're going to do the same with our shape layer 1. So come down to our trim paths, and we're going to animate our end to the slider as well. Okay, so you'll Alt and you'll click on the stopwatch to get the options available, and you're going to pick whip. Okay, just make sure your no object's reselected. Click on the pick whip and drag it to the slider. Okay, so now if you take your slider and you move it up and down, boom, we have our animation there. Okay, so now we'll just put it to 100 and come to our text layer and just scale this in nicely. So I'll just scale it down and move it to around there. Okay, choose a nice text and come to the slider, put it to 0%. Actually, before that, we can make this look a lot nicer. So we can come to our shape layer and Control D to duplicate it. Okay, and then go to the constraint, the contents, ellipse, and go to the transform and scale it up a little bit and make the stroke a lot less. So now it's going to have the same, it's going to flow with our animation, but now we have two bars instead of one. Right, and then we can go ahead and duplicate it again, but this time we can come to our contents and actually delete the trim paths, so this one won't animate. Okay, and then we can come to our transform, we can scale it up a little bit, and we can drop down our stroke, and we can, where it says dashes, we can click the add dash, and then we can play around with our dash length. So we'll make it around 12, and then you can keyframe the offset and move it to around 4 seconds and animate it to like 80. So that way it will be turning, and it'll sort of add that nice like science fiction-y high tech feel to it. So you can play around with any sort of style you'd like. You can change the color, so if you want a different color, we can do that. Alright, so now if we click on a null object, we have this nice animation like that. Alright, great. So we're going to set this to 0. Okay, set it to 0 and make sure you're at the beginning of your comp, and keyframe the slider and go to around 5 seconds, 4 or 5 seconds I'd say, and then we can put this to 100. Alright, so this is our first stat that's going to go to 100%. Okay, so then go ahead and control and select all of the layers except for the background layer. Okay, and right click and say pre-compose. So this is going to move it to a new composition. Alright, so we can still edit everything in here, but we can work with it here as one object. So we can move it around now and scale it how we want. Alright, so we'll actually move this to the top right here and scale it down a bit. So it will still animate, it will copy everything from this pre-comp here. So go ahead and select everything, okay, because we're going to create another one now. So we're going to create a new composition. Just call this, you can leave it as comp 2 or call it rating 2. Alright, and then you're going to copy everything from the pre-comp 1, which we should have actually named to rating 1. Copy all of that and put it into your rating 2. So now you can come to your null object, drop down the effects, slide control, and then delete the one for 100%, and then we can maybe make this one 75%. Alright, so now this one's 70. This one will go up to 75. So if we come back to the comp 1 and go to your project, you'll see the rating 2 comp, which you can just drag in. Okay, and you can scale this down, you can make it the same size as this one, or you can make it a smaller size. So now we've got maybe I'll make this a little bit smaller. So we'll have it down here at the bottom. Okay. So now if we go through, we have one going to 100% and one going to 75%. And then if you want to add a third rating, you would do the same thing. So you'll just create a new composition, copy all of that to your new composition, and then change the slider value, and then just drag it in. So to save time, we'll just have two 75% values and 100% value. Alright, and then obviously you can just arrange this. So this one should be at the top, then this one should be there. So then we can make them come in at different times, so we'll offset them a little bit. So the first one will come in, and the second and third. But to make it a little bit nicer, well, before we move them, we'll select all of them and drop down the transform, go to the beginning of your comp and keyframe the opacity at 0, and then just go in for a tiny bit and put it to 100. Right, so then it fades in. Okay, so you can collapse them and then offset them a little bit like that. So now they fade in just after each other like that. Alright, so that looks really nice. So we can add in our laptop now, and we'll just put it over here. Okay, so now we're going to have the lines pointing to our ratings and maybe some words. Alright, so we'll come down to our pen tool here, click on the pen tool, and then we'll have it start from this point here, hold down shift, and then just click and create your lines like that. Alright, so we're going to add a trim pass as well. So just go to the drop down your shape layer and say add, and we're going to add a trim paths. Go to the very beginning of your comp, drop down your trim paths 1 and make the end value 0, keyframe it and go to about, I'd say 1 second, and put it to 100%. So now you can see it animating. So what you can do is you can maybe start the ratings, these rating graphics, only after this is animated in. Okay, so to do that, we'll just move them further down the timeline. So first comes out, and then the graphics start coming in. So we can add another shape layer. So just click off of it and click on the pen tool one more time, and we'll drag it from about here like that. Okay, and we'll add a trim path again. So add trim path, go to the end, keyframe the end at 0, go to about a second and keyframe it at 100. So this one we can even offset it a little bit, so it looks like it's splitting up at this point. So maybe around right there. Right, so as it reaches that point, it goes into two different directions like that. Right, so then we can add some text. So we'll add a new text layer and say total. Okay, so the bottom one will be our total rating, which will scale up to about that big. Okay, let's move it to about here. And then we can add another text layer, and we'll move it to the side here, and we'll just transform it and rotate it. So rotate it -90, and we'll say this is the performance. Okay, and then we can just scale it to fit on our line here. Alright, so possibly could change the text to something a bit thinner. but we'll just leave it for now. So we'll just leave it for this one. So now we just want it to fade in as our lines are coming over it there. So we'll come to the performance and keyframe the opacity is 0, and as the line reaches, as it's underlining it, we'll make the opacity full. Okay, and then we'll just copy these keyframes, drop down our total one, come to where we want it to fade in, so around here, and we'll just paste it on that. Alright, so obviously we would also like to add a third one that goes to our middle rating there, but you get the idea. Okay, so now we can take everything once you're happy with it. So you can take everything and just click on the top one, hold down shift and select the bottom one, and you can pre-compose it. Okay, and then come back to your layer and we can make it a 3D layer now, and we'll come down to the transform and we'll maybe keyframe the scale, go to about 7 seconds and make it grow just by a little bit like that. Okay, and then we can also take the Y rotation and we can start it like that on this side and move it in and put it to 0. Okay, so now we have the 3D effect with it. Okay, one thing we can actually change is you can just Control Z to backspace. We'll pre-comp everything except the background. So get everything, pre-compose except for the background. Come back to your comp 1. So now when we turn it into a 3D layer and rotate it, we won't get the black at the bottom. Okay, so we'll just make it a 3D layer once more. We'll do the scale again. So it's about 6 seconds. Just scale it a tiny bit. And then make the Y rotation to about there. Okay, and then come to the end and put it at 0. Alright, so that's what we got. And I think that looks pretty nice. So we'll quickly render it out. So we'll drag it to where it ends, which is around 6 seconds, 7 seconds. Alright. So let's see what our final render looks like. Alright, so that looks really nice. I think the ratings could go a little bit faster, but you guys can just change that to suit your preference. So yeah guys, that was a little cool like rating system intro for if you want to do something like this. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.